It is Monday, July 6th. I'm Simone Sanders Townsend, sitting in for Ali Velshi. And it's 120 days until the midterm elections. Democrats still have the momentum, and Donald Trump is continuing to exploit his position as president to help Republicans turn their fortunes around any way he can. He has launched complex efforts to change the political landscape ahead of the midterms, but perhaps his most used tactic is just simply intimidation. Trump continues to spread baseless, evidence-free lies to undermine the integrity of the election, and he's even threatening to jail Americans. Yesterday, he posted this photo. It shows a billboard with text that reads, quote, "If no one goes to jail for election fraud, what incentive is there not to cheat?" Well, MS Now asked the White House about this post today, specifically if Trump was directing the Justice Department to prosecute individuals or organizations for election fraud. The White House did not give a direct answer, but said that Trump was committed to having secure elections and added, quote, "Anyone who breaks the law will be prosecuted." Well, it's a rather generic statement that does nothing to quell concerns that an overzealous Department of Justice might follow through with a potential order from the president. And tonight, the Detroit News reported that the Department of Justice has informed Michigan officials that it intends to send election monitors to oversee the battleground states' primary elections that are happening on August 4th. Now, it singles out 3 cities where monitors could be sent: Detroit, Lansing, and East Lansing, which just happen to be 3 of the biggest Democratic strongholds in the state. Joining me now is Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. She's also a Democratic candidate for governor of Michigan. Secretary Benson, thank you for joining us tonight. First, what is your reaction to this news that the Department of Justice could send election monitors to Michigan for the primaries? Has the Department of Justice spoken directly to you or your office?
No, and thanks for having me to talk about this important issue. The president and his administration continues to sow seeds of doubt, baseless, evidence-free, as you said, about our elections, which are in Michigan and everywhere else. Our elections are transparent, accurate, accessible, and secure. And transparency is our friend. We welcome observers into our elections to see just how secure they are. But what we're seeing here is the president and the Department of Justice continuing to pursue these baseless allegations to confuse voters about the facts. Now, in this case, you see where we have stood firm in the Department of State statewide and said no, and we'll see you in court every time the president tries to break the law or intimidate me or anyone else in our office. Now they're going to local officials to try to pressure them to be afraid or scared or worried, and through that pressure voters in these critical communities in Michigan, East Lansing, Detroit, into worrying about the elections process or worrying about whether they might face intimidation or worse if they show up to vote. But the bottom line is Michigan's professional local clerks are committed to ensuring our elections are safe, accessible, and fair. And we're going to continue to make sure every Michigan citizen can cast their ballot with confidence, free from interference and obstruction. And I'll always stand up to anyone who tries to stand in the way of that.
One quick follow-up. Are you planning, let's just say if the Department of Justice makes good on their promise, and again, the Detroit News is reporting that they plan to be there on August 4th, are you planning to have your own monitors there to monitor the monitors?
Yeah, I mean, we're ready. We've been scenario planning for years, really. This is something we've been enduring here in Michigan and in battleground states in particular around the country for years, since 2020. So we consistently scenario plan with local law enforcement, election officials, first responders, and grassroots nonpartisan attorneys at polling locations throughout Michigan. And we recognize and welcome, again, transparency. We welcome people to observe, and we consistently have had observers in all of our elections. What we draw the line at is disruption, is interference, is intimidation, is breaking the law. And we will be there if anyone tries anything like that to ensure those disruptions are stopped, minimized, and that voters are protected as they exercise their sacred right to vote.
As the Secretary of State, I think you know that Trump's claims about election fraud not being prosecuted is truly pure fiction. But it's not as widespread as Donald Trump claims. You actually did a review of the 2024 vote, and you found that out of 5.7 million ballots cast in the Michigan general election, there were only 15 credible cases of election fraud. Did I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, our elections are secure and accurate, and any types of irregularities or fraud is extremely rare here in Michigan and all around the country. And indeed, we have processes in place to when that type of irregularity or fraud or anything wrong with our election process occurs, we track it, we find it, and we prosecute and hold those who violate the law accountable. Unlike President Trump, I might add, who actually pardoned those who disrupted the counting and certification of our electoral college votes and the tragedy that occurred at our Capitol on January 6th. So that's the irony here. The ones who are actually protecting the integrity of the process are state and local officials who show up every day to do their job without fear or favor, but just to follow the law and protect our elections. And what you have is a president of the United States who consistently tries to distract from his failed economic policies and pressure local officials into allowing him and his administration to interfere with our elections. And it really underscores why it's never been more important to have state officials on both sides of the aisle who will act with integrity and a backbone to stand up to anyone who would try to break the law to interfere with our democracy.
I want to get your reaction to this because one of the Republican candidates in the governor's race, Rep. John James, who has been endorsed by Donald Trump, he was actually on Fox News tonight, and he broadly called you and other Democrats Marxists. And Donald Trump has similarly been repeatedly calling Democrats communists. What is your reaction to this escalating line of attack? And do you think it's effective in Michigan or anywhere in the country, frankly?
You know, I'm in the middle, Simone, of a statewide tour of Michigan, where I've been talking to voters all across the state for the last several days. And what I hear time and time again are how many residents on both sides of the aisle are worried about whether or not they can pay their basic bills, whether they can have to choose between paying for medicine or food, childcare or rent. And here's someone, John James, who voted not once, not twice, but 3 times to raise healthcare premiums on Michigan. Michiganders all across the state, hundreds of thousands of Michiganders seeing their price go up of healthcare because of what he did. So if he's trying to distract from that, and make this election about anything other than my commitment to lower the costs of Michiganders and grow our economy, well, good luck with that, because I'm actually meeting people where they are and talking to people about the real issues. And what I found is what citizens of Michigan want is someone who will stand up to the president and his failed economic policies that are making their life harder. My job as governor will be to make their life easier and ensure that no matter who you are or where you live in this state, you have access to well-paying jobs and can thrive.
You know, Madam Secretary, you did earn an endorsement this evening. Pete Buttigieg, who is a Michigan resident, endorsed you in the governor's race in Michigan. And in his statement, he recalled the threats and the protests that you experienced following Trump's lies about the 2020 election. And frankly, it takes me back where we started this conversation. It reminds me of the dangers that election workers have faced in recent years, how some people may be hesitant to come out and participate this year as an election worker. Do you have that concern ahead of the midterms? And what's your message to folks out there across the state who are considering maybe this isn't something they want to do this fall?
Well, know that all the chaos and the cruelty that we're seeing from the Trump administration at a time where it feels like at the federal level, government showing up everywhere we don't want it and nowhere where we actually need it. That state leaders like myself and other leaders like Pete Buttigieg and Democrats up and down the ticket are focused on driving down costs and improving people's lives. And yes, sometimes that means we have to be prepared to stand up to the president of the United States and his failed chaotic tariffs or other policies that are making life harder for Michiganders. But what muscle I've honed over these last several years, defending our democracy against powerful interests like the president and the threats that come with that, and the challenges that come with that. What I've learned is how important it is for state leaders to be guardrails in this moment and have the moral courage to stand up to anyone, anytime, anywhere who would try to interfere with the rights and safety of our citizens. I've done that as Secretary of State, and I'm ready to do it as the next governor of Michigan.